Hi everyone and welcome. My name's Clare Muscutt from UC Today, bringing you the latest news and conversation from the unified communications and collaboration industry. Today's chat is centred on how to survive and thrive in the new CX jungle. And to help me explore this topic, I'm joined by Jeremy Payne, Group VP of Marketing and Alliances at Enghouse Interactive. Jeremy, thanks so much for joining me. How are you today?
Yeah, really good, thanks. And thanks for the opportunity to chat to you today.
Yeah, awesome to be here. So let's get straight in there. Referring to the title of today's video, what does the CX jungle look like from your perspective? Is it as simple as trying to create the same experience remotely, or is it something else?
I think most organizations, most people have just gone through so much change, in the last 6 months, change that they never really foresaw coming. So I think if you look at the evolution of, unified communications, customer experience, contact center, AI bots, all of the things that we could and probably should talk about, they were on a trajectory and on a path of evolution that most people understood. Most people kind of recognized, yeah, we probably will need to move to the cloud at some point. Yeah, we will need to get some AI and some automation into this. Yes, we probably should improve social service, voice of the customer, all of these good things. And then suddenly that wasn't really an option anymore. 5 years worth of evolution has kind of got compressed into 5 months. And I think what you see now is that most organizations are at, or they're trying to probably have an inflection point, which is when this kind of all happened, most organizations' top priority was, how do we keep the plane in the air? How do we keep serving our customers? How do we get our staff to kind of be able to work from home? And that was about the aspiration. It probably wasn't too much more scientific than that. We literally, I think we went into lockdown on something like Monday, the 24th of March. It was something like that. And on the Thursday night before that Monday, when the lockdown came into effect, we had it wasn't even a customer, it was a prospective customer phone us up and say, all of our servers are in the office, all of our contact center is sort of hardwired in our office. We can't get into the office on Monday. Can you help? And we could, and we spun them up a cloud instance over the weekend. We trained them early on Monday morning, and at 9 o'clock, bang, they were using their new cloud contact center. But, I think what you'll start to see now is there's, probably most people at that point, myself included, I moved into my office, or when I say office, the spare bedroom upstairs. Yeah, like most people. And I really naively thought I'd been there about 2 weeks, 4 weeks max. So I'm sat kind of on this really awkward, uncomfortable chair, a tiny little kind of desk, and you think, don't worry, I'll be back in the office. What's apparent now, you look at, the announcements last week from Microsoft, the week before Amazon, the week before that Google, there's just a stream of organizations saying to their employees, working in the office isn't going to be mandatory anymore. It's an option. The office is going to get turned into a collaboration hub as opposed to a permanent desk or that type of thing. So what I think you're going to start to see is this recalibration where people have kept the plane in the air. They've kind of stuck the Band-Aid or plaster on the injury, managed to get through the last few months, but in a way that is really not optimal. And it's not optimal on any level. It's not optimal, really from a customer service perspective for many customers. It's definitely not optimal for, lots of the agents or customer facing staff. And it's not optimal from an efficiency, people, process, policy, systems, all of that perspective as well. So I think, we're at that point where, organizations are really going to start to probably the back end of this pull together a bit more of a strategy and a plan around 2021. What do we need to do? We've done the survive bit, but now what do we do to thrive? It's not going to be good enough through 21 to just survive. You're going to have to offer customers what you want. And I think one of the other things, to take a step back and think about is, just like when the banking crisis happened, and money got tight and people were insecure about their jobs and their future and all the rest of it. When people are handling customer service inquiries, it's really easy on these type of conversations where we talk about technology to get wrapped around, well, unified communications great for collaboration and the cloud's great for this and all the rest of it. And it's really easy to lose sight of people and culture in the middle of that.
Agreed.
And actually, if you think about yourself as a customer service agent, you're now sat potentially in a room on your own. You could be dealing with a customer that's pretty emotionally stressed. So if you look at the number of things that have gone wrong, who don't you know this year who's had a holiday cancelled, a flight gone wrong, they're trying to get them exactly. Everyone's got a version of that story.
Yeah.
And that's quite an emotional thing. People are losing money, they didn't get the holiday they want, they need the money. So a lot of the interactions and calls that customer facing staff are handling right now are fairly emotionally charged. People are under pressure and stress. And when you think about how things were in a physical office, a supervisor could kind of overhear a phone call, could kind of sense somebody in their team was dealing with something that was pretty heavy going, and they could camp onto that call and listen and interject or help out or read the body language. 80% of communication is nonverbal. All of that's kind of got shrunk away. So it's real easy for people to end up a little bit isolated. And so I think smart organizations are going to come up with a strategy around the technology. They're going to come up with a strategy around people and process, but they're also going to really start to think about how do we manage and support our staff moving forward, because that really feels like the thing that's, in this survive phase, that's the thing that's ended up on the bottom of the shopping list. And that's not going to be sustainable.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think kind of being a non-technical person, but as a CX professional, I think what I'm seeing is that the things that have been switched on were somewhere on a digital roadmap in a couple of years' time, but we haven't had the time to design what that experience needed to look like. So the technology could be switched on, but all the other parts, as you rightly pointed out, in terms of people and processed, weren't designed to be that way. But in terms of working from home, do you think there are any good opportunities that the world's been presented with people being forced to stay at home and work?
Yeah, there's loads of benefits for everyone. I think the benefits for the employee or the agent are you're not wasting an hour, 2 hours a day commuting to a place of work. That's 2 hours a day that you could be earning money. So that's kind of great. That the flexibility that people have got, to balance and manage their home life is probably in one way improved. But it's like everything. When you talk about a positive, it's like the yin and yang of life. There's always a negative. And it's like, yeah, you've got that flexibility. But then I suspect if you talk to almost anyone in any job right now and you said, how do you feel about the demarcation of your work day finishing and your home life starting? And the whole thing's kind of ended up blurred. And I suspect for some people, customer facing people, they kind of go to bed thinking about that last phone call or that customer that complained and was a bit assertive with them during that course of that day. So there's definitely, for the organization, massive cost saving. They're sat now thinking, do we really need this big office anymore? So huge fixed cost saving there. I actually think as you extrapolate and play this story out and think about what the future could look like for the customer, there will be benefits, because as you start to layer in, AI, automation, self-service, social service customers helping each other through user forums or YouTube or whatever else. I think what you're going to find is that organizations then move to a different skill set within the contact center or the customer facing team. So you'll see distinct skills appear. So somebody that's got really good technical skills on the product or service that's being offered. You've got somebody that's got great negotiation skills. So we talked about the travel industry, and they're not one size fits all problems. That doesn't go through a straight through process. The fact you missed a flight, you may have had a hotel at the end, someone else didn't have a hotel, someone else missed a connecting flight. So you need somebody that's empowered. So that's the policy piece of the equation, empowered to make decisions that are right for the customer and the business. So I think you're going to see different level skill sets. And I think when you think about unified communications and collaboration environments, say, Microsoft Teams or Slack, that type of environment, the ability to pull in for an organization to pull in specialized skills as and when they need it. So if we think about, you're the holiday company and you've got people kind of, in a litigious situation, they're about to sue you because they're not getting their money back. Most small businesses or kind of travel agency type people haven't got the money to have a full-time lawyer. But there may be somebody out there who's just specialized in travel law, dealing with passengers and travelers that have had an issue, and knows what they're doing in terms of that particular space. And UC and collaboration environments allow you to pull that person into the dialogue and solve a problem really quickly and then back out. So this kind of idea of the gig economy and specialized skills, where people that specialized skill set may well work for 5 different travel companies rather than be an employee of one. So there's real upsides to this. As I said, I think the pace of change that's happened in the last 5-6 months is equivalent to the last preceding 5 years.
I agree. And I think it's really interesting that you were talking about people throughout this. It isn't about the technology, it's about how we can empower humans to do their jobs in a different way. Obviously pointing out that there are positives to staying at home and not having to commute anywhere, but there are lots of mental health challenges and general kind of leadership and cultural challenges. I'm just really intrigued about the businesses that are managing to adapt and not just survive, but are going to go on to thrive. What does that culture need to look like? And how much of it is really a barrier to providing great customer experience that's high quality consistently?
I mean, if you had to distill it down to one word, that one word would be trust.
Yes.
So if you go back to the kind of classic image of the old contact center, it looks a bit like a Victorian version of a contact center, if there's such a thing, which is like that big open plan office. Everyone's sat at a tiny little desk. Everyone's wearing the same headset. Everyone's given the same thing. Everyone's given a script or absolutely rigid process to follow. You're not allowed to deviate. Even if you feel really sorry for the customer, you can't, you stick to this script and this process and don't give them a refund or whatever else. And it's almost like a battery farm, where humans are chickens and they're just following, a set process. If you look at the evolution of AI, Internet of Things, machine to machine, all of that kind of stuff, that easy stuff, the routine stuff, can be done, by either through automation, or computer to computer, machine to machine, or it can be done through self or social service. Most people don't want to get on a phone and queue to speak to someone. If they can solve it themselves, they will. So the stuff that's left is kind of, that more complex, awkward, ugly, tricky stuff that may need 2 or 3 people to fix the problem. And if you think about the profile of those people, by definition, if they have the ability, the emotional skill set and the intelligent skill set to be able to solve those kind of problems, they're not going to be people that want to be micromanaged and held absolutely rigidly to a script. And that's not the right thing for the company. But if you look at the history of where, a lot of customer facing contact center type teams came from, there's software out there to ensure adherence, that you're making a certain number of calls per day, that your average handle time doesn't go beyond 2 or 3 minutes. It's not really about solving the problem. It's about doing your 50 calls today. All of those sort of numeric measurements that are real easy for a software company to do, that can be done standing on its head. The difficult part, and I actually remember, a presentation you did, I think probably 3 years ago, where you had a slide that looked at like an iceberg.
Yes.
And the piece above the sea is that bit, the bit that software companies love to measure. How many calls did you do today? How long did each call take? What's the average time of the call? How many did you fix it? How many abandoned calls were there? Real easy to measure. But what's the harder part is, how did the customer feel? Would they come back? What's their net promoter score? All of that stuff. How did the employee feel? The soft measurements, when you're listening in on that call, is somebody talking too fast, probably like I am right now? Is somebody is somebody kind of sounding stressed and that type of stuff, as people using the wrong language, all of those things. So there's that dichotomy now for an organization that has had historically that culture of, the supervisor walking up and down to make sure you haven't left your desk and gone outside to smoke or get an extra coffee. They can't do that anymore. And now you're at that decision point. Do you install a piece of software on somebody's laptop that has got the camera running on them all day, every day, so you're visually looking at them, and it's that sort of, kind of nightmare future of where the machines took over? Or do you empower people and give them the trust to do the right thing, put some safeguards in place, but basically empower people to do the good thing? And of course, again, no one size fits all. Depends what product you're offering, what the risk is to the company, value of the customers that you're dealing with. But I think that cultural piece is where you're really going to see lots of the gnashing of teeth and arm wrestling going on. The technology piece is not going to be the hard part of the problem to solve.
Yeah, that's such a visceral image, imagining like the battery farm of contact centres, and also it is the worst nightmare, isn't it? If we just digitize the role of a supervisor, maybe through AI in the future, for the employee, that's going to be even worse than the battery farm, isn't it?
Well, it is, but then I think another way of looking at it is to say it's a bit like, when we had humans basically acting as a human telephony switch. So where it was, like you'd phone someone up and I need to speak to sales, so they effectively press 1 for sales. I need to speak to support, they press 2 for support. We had a human doing that. Now that job's done by automation and self-service.
Sorry, I think I might have confused you there. I totally up for automation and self-service. It was just the image that you presented of how that might feel. And actually, when what's needed is to remember the human element. And for me, that empowerment and trust are the most important things. And as you said, those command and control organizations that have traditionally always operated with the looking over the shoulder, just digitizing that isn't going to work. What we need to do is actually change the culture, embrace and use technology in the right place for the customer and the employee, but don't just try and switch on that one.
No, you're absolutely right. And it's like one of those things, if you don't do the groundwork and get the people, policy, process piece and the culture piece right, all you're going to do is digitize the problem that you physically had. You're just going to virtualize it.
Yeah, and that leads me perfectly on to the next question, because as a CX designer, I believe the answer is being able to calculate the right people, process, proposition, technology mix through design. But I'd love to hear from you what your digital by design approach means, and what kind of sustainable wins is it going to create for the market?
So you would be amazed at the amount of people that just want to buy a piece of software. And we're a software company, so you'd figure, well, that's great news. But it's not great news to sell someone a piece of software and then they find 12 months later it's not done what they wanted it to do. And I mean, we literally have people phoning us up saying, can I buy some AI? Like that will solve their problem. And actually, when you kind of peel it back and start to ask the questions, what's the job description for the bot? What's it going to do? If you were employing a human, what would you do in terms of recruiting them? What would you do in terms of training them and onboarding them? How are you going to measure and monitor them? What does success and good look like? All of those things. None of that thinking has been done. And it's exactly the same thing when we talk about digital by design. You can't do everything at once, but actually when you stop and talk to most organizations, that Pareto rule, 20/80 rule, sits almost true to everyone that we speak to. So there's 20% of their customer journeys that drive 80% of the cost, 20% of the journeys drive 80% of the revenue, and 20% of the journeys drive most of the regulatory risk. So if you understand, okay, what are my top 3 journeys that bring the money into the company? Well, let's start there and really think about that, break that journey down. Who are we dealing with? What's the profile of the customer? What channels are they primarily trying to interact with us on? And is that the right channel for them to interact with us through? For example, somebody using a chatbot to start a new mortgage is, it might be great to start the conversation, but you're never going to be able to finish it doing that for regulatory reasons. So it's not really the ideal channel. So once you start to piece together, we know these are what our key and most important, journeys are. These are the profiles of the customers that we're predominantly dealing with. These are the channels that our customers feel comfortable and want to use. These are the channels that make most sense for us as a business to use. Now we've got the basics of the jigsaw puzzle to start to automate and optimize that journey, to say, where should we use automation and AI and bots and speed the steps through, a bit like moving around a Monopoly board. Can we save 5 steps on the board by just having a bot or an AI or a machine do that in the background? At which point should we introduce self-service and empower and allow the customer to self-serve? How do we learn and optimize from the experience that we're offering where we've made mistakes, so that we can put that out there through social service, social media, so that customers again can self-serve and not need to interact with us unnecessarily. And at the point that they do interact with us, how do we pull all of the information together about who they are, what they're trying to do, what people we have available? So this is like the UC piece. Who's available within our organization and our ecosystem of gig economy people that we could pull in right now to help this customer solve their problem? When you come back, what does the customer want? The customer wants the fastest journey time possible with the least investment of their time and effort to get the outcome they want. We're all human, we're all the same. So if you start with that end in mind, and I often reference Amazon as an example. So if you go on Amazon's website, in the background, they've used bang, they know who you are, they know what you bought last time, they know the profile of who you are and what people just like you bought last time they bought the product that you've just bought. So they're able to make intelligent recommendation decisions. And again, if you ask yourself, when's the last time you called Amazon about a problem?
Never.
You think about the millions and billions of things they're selling right now worldwide. All of those potential customer service, flashpoints have been mitigated by really well conceived and thought out customer journeys that leverage technology where appropriate. And that's the piece. Most people, when they start out, don't want to sit in a room with the whiteboard and start to map the journey out and think about how do we get what we want. It's much easier just to get a checkbook out, write a check and hope it's going to solve the problem.
Yeah, I see it all the time. And I've been recently talking about problems over solutions. So rather than treating a solution like a bit of a spanner, you can walk around and see what you can fix with it. How well do you really understand for your customers and employees exactly that? What are their priorities? What are the priority journeys? How do you target the right solution to the whole experience, not just part of the problem? And usually it's cost saving, right? That's the main business challenge that people are trying to solve, not actually genuinely solving problems for people. And it's really great to hear a technology company talking about design as I think that the only bit I'd really add to what you'd said was, if you're designing a journey, design the target experience first. That will help you to calculate what all the right solutions and parts from people, process and technology are. But think about it like that: the target experience you want to deliver for your people, your customers and your employees, and just spending that little bit of time in discovery at the start to really understand and do that is going to yield exponential results, isn't it? So it's great, really great to hear that. Really great to hear that. So my last question really is just about unified collaboration and CX platforms have been increasingly colliding. Has the pandemic increased this merging of technology, and is the combination driving the right efficiencies for customer resolution and experience? Are we seeing an actual real benefits, or is technology not quite there yet in terms of leveraging customer loyalty? Is it still more around the people and design piece?
Yeah, so I think if you look at collaboration environments, and obviously we work very closely with Microsoft Teams, and lots of our contact center and customer service technologies are heavily integrated with Microsoft Teams. But when you look at where do those platforms really work quite well, the last 6 months have accelerated the adoption of it, because where you may have been sat in an open plan office and you could just lean over the dividing wall between your desk and your colleague's desk and have a quick chat and solve something, you can't physically lean over that desk anymore. You've got to do it in a virtual environment. So in a way, that is that sort of kind of virtual office where you can get, a few people jump on a call, start the dialogue with instant message. Are you around? Great. I need to chat to you about this. Okay, let's jump in. We can share files. We can leverage, existing assets and all of that. So great for that. Then when we think about, a customer facing environment, we where we talked about, leveraging these networked individuals, what we would call inside Enghouse the connected enterprise, leveraging people in the middle and back office, people that have the deeper skills to solve a more complex problem. We talked about people in your ecosystem outside of your organization that have the negotiation skills, if you're the travel agent example. How can we pull those people together quickly into a common place where we can share a single source of truth, which it could be just a Word document or the letter that the customer's complained with or their legal file or whatever else. But we've got all of the stuff in one place. We can have a collaborative conversation and hopefully fix that customer's problem quicker. So they're the two areas where, it's really kind of come into its own.
Nice.
But I think if we're completely honest right now, it's an immature technology that's maturing. Like most things, it's moved a huge amount in probably the last 3 years. And what is possible now compared to 3 years ago is incredible. But is it the finished product, and is it really doing what it should be doing? No. Just like it's a little bit like, I think if you look at collaboration environments and you think about those companies that offer like self-storage, you move house and I've got this stuff, I'll just stick it in one of these self-storage kind of places for a month. And you take over like a little small cupboard and you think that'll do, and then you realize you've got to go back and sort it out, but actually it's quite easy just to pay another 20 quid for next month, and you'll do that in the summer holiday when you've got time. By the summer holiday you've got more rubbish, you need a bigger kind of space. And actually when you look at lots of these collaboration environments, people don't want to spend their time clearing up the life laundry and the rubbish. And it's exactly the same thing, that all of this digital world, all of the digital customer service is underpinned by the quality of the data and the information that you're accessing. And if you're filling up folder after folder and file after file with redundant, old, out-of-date data, if you're not careful, in a year's time, 3 years' time, you're going to be wasting time fanning through folders trying to find the most up-to-date version of a Word document because you didn't have the right version control in place.
That happens to me all the time.
And I think, it's great for collaboration environment companies, because just like the lock and store type self-storage type company people, it's a great business, isn't it? You're selling space. So, they're more than happy for that to happen, but it's not necessarily optimal for the business, because ultimately it'll start to consume time and slow down efficiency.
I get you. Cool. Oh, it's been so awesome to talk to you today. I feel like I've learned loads. And I guess my main reflection is about actually finding your way through the CX jungle now. And as you've rightly pointed out, it's all about culture and thinking about the design of that map that will help you find your way through the CX jungle from surviving to thriving. So thanks so much for your time today. Just one last question. Where can people go to find more about Enghouse?
So, if they visit enghouseInteractive.co.uk, important to put the .co.uk on there, because we're a sort of geographic business. So all of the stuff on the UK website is going to be really relevant to this audience. So that's probably the best place to start, because it's got all of the information and assets about what we do and how we do it.
Great stuff. Well, that's it from us. And thank you so much to Jeremy for being here today. And if you did enjoy the show, please do drop us a like and share on social media. We always appreciate it. Thanks ever so much. You take care now, Jeremy. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.